Fishing trips anywhere, anytime. FishingBooker.com.
Explore historic waterways in 2025 with Scenic on the most inclusive cruise on Europe's rivers. Enjoy up to 5 dining experiences, spacious suites, and butler service. Be immersed in the culture with enriching free choice excursions and exclusive events. Scenic, in a class of its own. Book now and save.
Want to plan your next fishing trip without the hassle? FishingBooker.com is the best way to find and book a fishing charter anywhere in the world. Whether you're chasing trophy fish or just looking for a family day on the water, FishingBooker makes it simple, fast, and secure. With thousands of experienced guides, verified reviews, and 24/7 customer support, FishingBooker takes the guesswork out of planning. Visit FishingBooker.com and book your trip today. FishingBooker. Fishing trips made easy.
All right, welcome back to the Survival and Basic Badass Podcast. Kevin and Chuck. Today, well, we're going to talk about chaos. And I would even say the coming chaos. There's a lot of uncertainty, and it's funny because I feel like people don't even know how to run their business or do anything because you don't know what the future holds. Everything is so uncertain these days, and I don't think it always felt that way. I mean, I know we always like panic before a political election or that kind of thing. And, you know, you're like, oh, if the Democrat wins, you know, taxes might go up and more restrictions on the environment or things like that. And if a Republican wins, it's like, oh, they might change things and do crazy things like tariffs. You know, who knows, right? But it's always uncertainty. I mean, no, I know typically we wouldn't think of Republicans and tariffs, but that's what we think of today. So there's a lot going on out there, and it's hard to take it all in. But how do you prepare for uncertainty, I guess, is the biggest step that we have to worry about. So I think the first thing is market volatility. There is a lot to worry about with market volatility where, you know, when you see the market crash and drop, you know, 1,000 points or something or whatever, do you just say, oh no, and pull it all out? You know, that's the thing. Do you just pull your whole investment out? And then of course, you know, the next day it might go back up. I think if you're in when it drops, your best bet seems to be ride it out. But obviously I'm not a financial planner. I don't know. I don't call the market perfectly. You know, who knows what's going on out there. But there's a lot of uncertainty with things like that. And you need to find a way to plan or, you know, have a way to deal with it. And I think, you know, paying attention to what's going on in politics is definitely a way to do it. But there's also there's also where you could maybe just like take some cautions where you put some of it in a safer, you know, bonds or something like that. Now, obviously China's dumping their bonds and stuff like that, but really, unless the US dollar goes away, you know, it's not like your money is going to really disappear on you. So that is, you know, one option. But it's not just about financial stuff. There's a lot more going on. So you have policy shifts, right? You know, we have uncertainty with China. That's definitely like one of the scariest ones that I have is we're definitely putting China into a corner. And so you have that geopolitical instability, right? Unpredictability with, you know, agreements like the Paris Accord, things like that changing, things like, you know, so how do you prepare for all these things? That's really what it comes down to is what can you do? And I think it comes down to the basics of prepping, where you want to be able to control your supply chain, where things come from, how you have control over things. And that's a big part of it. Decide, hey, where am I going to get my food? If the grocery stores aren't getting, things from China, right? We run out of whatever it is that China gives us, and Walmart doesn't have anything on the shelves, that kind of stuff. That's a big deal. So we need to be able to plan and prepare. So that's why, as a prepper, we've always all along pushed to kind of stockpile things, kind of see if we, have stuff that we're going to need. Like I know when I knew the tariffs were kind of coming, and, Trump had campaigned on that, we kind of saw that was going to be a thing. When we saw that was coming, like I buy things like, I was going to buy a battery grinder, that was made in China, whatever, that I could kind of get in cheap and still have something that I can go out and use. Those kind of things you order and you plan ahead, right? Now, obviously it's a little late for, that, but that's how you plan for instability. And that's something to think about. But even now, right? Things are really uneasy with China right now. They're dumping bonds. China's economy is kind of getting crushed. At least that's what we're seeing in a lot of the news feeds and things like that. They're dumping their bonds and they don't know what to do. Now, dumping their bonds is, in a way, a retaliatory strike against what Trump's doing. And I understand that. But because of that, it has effects. But one of the big reasons that China doesn't mess with us is because they love having us as a big consumer. And when we cut that out by putting insane tariffs on them, what is to stop China from messing with us? And that's kind of a scary thought. I know I made sure that all my like gas and diesel and stuff that I keep on hand was all like topped off, that my reserves were a little bit, ready for things. I've been dealing with some well issues, and I went and made sure that all that was squared away and things are right. I try and, make sure my vehicles are handled, and I did what I need to do to keep things working properly. Anything I'm planning on buying in the next month or so, as long as the prices are still reasonable and worth doing, if I can get any kind of deal or do anything reasonable, I'm buying those in advance. I'm just trying to have a level of preparedness and be ready for whatever comes and whatever shows up on my door. Now, there's another aspect, and kind of personal safety. There's a lot of chaos out there. Riots and protests, we don't really have those now, or maybe a terror attack that's in the city or something like that. Those things come up. Maybe make sure you're carrying your concealed carry all the time. Maybe you're keeping your get home bag in your car. Make sure that's squared away and up to date. It's a good time to check on things and make sure your supplies are ready to go. Check your inventory. Now, there's also some uncertainty with interest rates in the Federal Reserve. Who knows where that's going to go? So do you have your finances in order? And by that, I mean, credit cards and things like that you can't control. Is there any way that you could get them like into a loan or something like that, get things squared away before things get out of hand? I feel like there's a lot of uncertainty in the real estate market right now, and you just don't know what could happen with real estate. Do you hold? Do you sell? Do you look for an opportunity to buy? Now, I know one of the big things is to have money set aside and, planned, prepared, where if the opportunity arises, you're able to pounce. And what I mean by that is if the stock market goes down, if maybe it's a time to jump in and buy some, catch it on the way back up. If the the real estate market goes down. They always say that's when the millionaires are made, is when the markets kind of crash, when things go down. And that's like with real estate, that's the time to buy when everything collapses, but you buy when it's cheap, you sell when it's high. And that's the thing. Everybody always seems to panic with the markets. Things drop way down. And then everybody's like, oh, the market's crashing, I should sell it all. Well, yeah, you already missed it. Like, it kind of happened, it already dumped down. Now, does that mean that it's not possible that it's going to keep going a lot further? Of course it could. But, will it? I don't know. That's the thing. We can't predict what's happening and what the future holds, but we can kind of make an educated guess based on history. Right. And I mean, tariffs, kind of knew that was going to hurt the stock market. Even if you'd asked like Chat GPT in the beginning, what will happen with the markets? I mean, if you really said to anybody, would you expect instability in the market if people don't know what's going on? Then, who knows? If there's instability in the market, instability in our trade, then you're going to have instability in the market. And that's the kind of thing that, you plan for. Interest rates, the Federal Reserve, thoughts, Kevin?
Yeah, I know Jerome Powell's the head of the Federal Reserve. He's the chairman. And Trump's been talking about firing him, which technically he can't do.
Okay.
But
But it's Trump.
It's Trump.
So who knows?
He just does whatever the fuck he wants. So I think the big issue there would be, it wouldn't affect us immediately in the United States, but what it would do is cause instability internationally and cause people to try and, different countries to start selling off the dollar, which would cause, massive inflation again.
Right.
Which, we're trying to fight against. So he's up for renomination.
And yeah, that could definitely, up for renomination. And, that leaves a lot of uncertainty. It goes right back to, more questionable, what's going on, what's going to happen, and just more fear and panic. And I think the more people the more people are uncertain and don't know what's going to happen, the more the world is unpredictable, people start to panic. And when they panic, they do kind of crazy things. And the more there's that uncertainty out there, the more the panic and the fear rises, the more you can expect fluctuations, both allowing for opportunities for you to pounce and jump on a good deal, and also more opportunity for disruptions and chaos. I know a lot of companies are like starting to lay people off with uncertainty of their markets. I was just talking to some people at work and they were like, oh, why would a business stop buying, engines or whatever? Well, if I make cars and I don't know if I'm going to be able to sell my cars to people in China, then I don't know if I need to buy a bunch of new engines to put in those cars, right? That's the kind of thing. That's where that uncertainty comes from. And people don't know, where to go with that. So with the with the renomination of the Federal Reserve, where Kevin, what do you expect to happen? How do you see that playing out?
Yeah, well, I think he's gonna obviously pick somebody else. He's gonna pick somebody that's gonna, lower interest rates. And they're lowering interest rates in different countries, but the reason the Federal Reserve is keeping the interest rates where they are is because of the instability in the market because of the tariffs. So right. He thinks the tariffs aren't a big deal, and he thinks that interest rates should go down, which I don't know. I mean, I'm not an economist, but it seems like the economists kind of agree with the Federal Reserve right now, and Trump just says, nah, that's not what I think, so I'm going to do what I want.
Right. Well, I heard a guy explain how interest rates work as far as the bond market and like that. And it kind of, I didn't know. I mean, it kind of was new information to me. And the way it played out was basically, if you have like a 7-year bond, right? So whatever thing that, you buy it, and say you buy a $50 savings bond, and in 7 years, it's going to be $50. Well, the problem is the Federal Reserve, in order to keep money coming in to pay our bills and pay the interest and the debt that we have, they have to sell those bonds. And if nobody's buying them, it turns out the price has to go down. Well, the way that ends up affecting an interest rate is if we lower the price on a bond in order to get people to buy it because they're not buying it, then I still have to go from, before maybe I was able to sell them for $20 a piece, and now I have to sell them for $10 a piece. Well, it turns out the interest rate is going to go up in order for, in 7 years, $10 to become $50. So that's how that works. You have to accommodate, the interest rate is going to be reflected because that time is fixed. And we have to sell bonds to get money coming in. And that's where, but we obviously set the interest rate, like with real estate and, the prime rate and things like that. And that does matter. And we do have control over that. But when we have control over that, there are certain things that are out of our control. And that's where you get into danger and chaos. And again, it's that uncertainty where people get scared. People panic about, whatever, the future holds and whatever they can do. They don't know, what's going on, and you get scared. And the Federal Reserve, they take the blame for it, but it is a hard act to balance. I think one of the things Trump is pushing for, though, is he's like, you don't know what I'm going to do next, so just wait and trust me. But you can't be like, yeah, don't worry, I'm going to break and not have those tariffs anymore, because then, or he thinks I'm going to break China. I know their inside communication and that they're like, we're going to break any day, or, whatever. I don't know. But when I was in the military, I'd always be like, well, they know more than I do. I should just trust them. But however, the more I learn in life and get experience, I kind of feel like I don't know. They don't know either. We're all kind of just guessing.
I get that impression. I keep hearing that shit a lot. Like, trust, you just have to trust Trump. And I just
don't. That's fair. That's the thing. You don't know what he's going to do. And, he's kind of crazy and, does some erratic things. And honestly, somebody gets to that age, and, we definitely had that with Biden, where somebody gets to an age where you're like, are they really in control? What are they doing? Trump's always kind of been erratic and done some impulsive things. And, that makes people nervous. They like predictability. People like predictability and knowing that they can count on, somebody and know what to expect. And the more that you're uncertain or unsure, it makes it tough.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a big thing, as far as chaos goes. I think that's going to be a big thing in the not just the markets, but the supermarkets, the grocery store, the electric bill, everything.
Yeah.
So we're going to, I know that Canada's threatening to increase my electric bill by putting a tax on it. We'll see what happens. My electric bill is through the roof already, which is crazy. $800 last month. 1 month.
Wow. Dude, that's crazy. I thought that if we put in all those LED light bulbs, everything would be good. That isn't exactly what happened. $800 a month. That's pretty crazy. I think right now I'm like somewhere around $300 a month. I think in the summer we might go to like $350. We do some extra coolers and things in the, as summer comes. So I'm prepared for that a little bit. But $800 a month is definitely something to be a little bit scared of. $800. I don't know. That hurts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely hits the bottom line.
Yeah.
Now, as far as preparing for chaos, you know, a lot of the stuff that we talk about is you know, first off, get your basic preps together, you know, your foodstuffs. Make sure you've got your, you know, your stockpile there. I'm stocking up on coffee right now because that's gonna go up.
And it's important. So
yeah. You need a new cell phone, now's the time to buy it, or plan on just riding it out for the next 3 years with what you got. I would also say, you know, you have to anticipate your needs, you know, anticipate what you're going to need over the next couple of years and think about what you want to have now. You know, everybody's got TVs, good TVs, because they're so cheap for you know, $300-$400 for a big screen TV. You know, I hope you're all set with that, because if your TV goes out, you're fucked now.
That window's closing, huh?
Yeah. I would say gear up emotionally too.
Oh, I like that. You know, emotionally, there's so much that, you know, like I said, it's that uncertainty and fear that makes people panic and react. You know, that's when they're so quick to, you know, sell everything, sell it. It's going down. The ship is sinking and I don't know what to do. Or, you know, we got to get out of our house and we got to do this. And we all panic and overreact to things. And that's not that cool. You know, that can really hurt you and backfire. So, I mean, I think as preppers, the big thing is to kind of plan these things out before, but the more you can make yourself, you know, I just can't go back to that enough. The more you can make yourself self-sustaining, the more you don't need somebody on the outside. And especially, you know, when is that driven home better than with all these tariffs, with all that uncertainty? You know, Trump only bought us 90 days where he said, you know, he's going to renegotiate with everybody and whatever. And, you know, I'm sure hopefully most of those work out, you know, and honestly, a lot of the benefits and the better negotiations that we get back to, I think will actually pay off in the long run. You know, as much as people want to be mad and blame Trump for this and, oh, it's so horrible, I think a big part of it is that we've let it go so long. We've let things get out of control. We've let all these countries take advantage of us without any kind of retaliation. And we've just had that approach where it's like, you know what? They need our help. And if they get extra tax and it goes on the American people, we're okay with it. And and I mean, I know it doesn't directly go on to the American people, but when other countries put tariffs on things, when we sell goods, obviously when we sell a good, basically our profit gets cut out by money that is just going to other governments. And America has gone a long time with just charity of, hey, you guys can, you know, go ahead and, you know, make money off our backs. And it's been tough. And I think some of this correction that has happened, you know, with Trump saying 130 or 135 countries are negotiating with us, bringing that back is a good thing. There's definitely pain with it. And I think, you know, the uncertainty with China, that's a whole big mess. Also, I imagine Russia's a little bit unhappy with how far oil prices are coming down and how that's changing and coming up. What else could you do to prepare, Kevin? Like, you know, what other things should we be thinking about? Yeah, I know you said mental is a big thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say, you know, keep calm, you know, that's a big deal. And get ready for people around you losing their
right. The people around us being crazy. And that's the thing. I mean, that's where it comes, you know, it's so important to protect yourself, to, you know, make sure that you're prepared, you know, that your wife goes out with the pepper spray. Maybe you start making the trips with the wife to the grocery store. Maybe you don't send your kids off, to play unattended in the park. You don't know. It's time to, kind of keep an eye on things, because there is a lot of crazy out there. And when people get panicked, things tend to unfold.
Yeah. I know, personally, I don't really send my wife out to do anything,
Yeah.
honestly, I keep her at the house. I do all the stuff that needs to be done when it comes to that sort of thing. And it's not that I don't trust her. It's not that I don't think that, she can handle her own business, which she can,
She's a little feisty.
Yeah, she is a little rowdy, man. But it's more the thing that, I'd rather be responsible for any craziness that goes on, I
mean, it's your job as the head of the household. Is that trouble? Am I at court danger there?
Yeah, it's sexist, but that's what we do here.
That's what we do.
That's fine.
All right. So that's it. I mean, hey, I would like somebody to take all the responsibility, and I don't have to worry about things, That isn't such a bad way to be. But the more and more you need to prepare, you need to have things in order, because the more you have things squared away beforehand, the less you're going to be caught by surprise and put yourself in a desperate spot. If I don't have to run out to the grocery store today when things are, when the protesters are hanging out over there because they don't like prices and tariffs or whatever, not that we're really seeing that yet. These are the things I think could be coming and that we need to keep an eye out for. Also, like Kevin said, shortages like coffee or things like that, if they get expensive, or they don't even get imported. That's the thing. One of the things people don't realize is all these factories are shutting down in China because they're not getting the sales. And there's a lot of little manufacturers that are closing their doors. And with the different manufacturers closing their doors, that means things aren't being made. And when things aren't being made, all of a sudden you don't have access to it. And, maybe there's only one guy out there who makes sporks or, any of these other things. I don't really know what it is that, each thing that's going to impact you directly. But also what I find is it's the global economy is so much bigger than we imagine it. So think of it like this. If you make, say, I work for a company that makes engines. If we make engines and the one company that makes spark plugs goes out of business and there's no spark plugs for anybody, that's a problem. And a lot of little things in China are shutting down because of this. I mean, they're just collapsing because there's no money. You can't keep the doors open if you can't pay the electric bill. If those factories shut down, then you're just stuck. The spark plugs go away, then that means the engines go away. And the engines are in America, being made. But if I don't have those spark plugs, I mean, that's just an example. I don't know. Anyway, where I work, they don't make engines with spark plugs, so it's not really a thing. But you get the idea. It's just one thing that could go away and disappear on us. And you have to plan for that, because that whole supply chain, we saw it with COVID. My truck, I had to get a new engine in my truck, and there were no new engines to be found because of the chip shortage and all that. Any little piece in that supply chain can break down. And that's one of the big things where I think you could kind of find fault with Trump with the tariffs, is that it needs to come in a slow time. And that's the problem with our 4-year election cycle. They don't have a slow time to do it. Mm-hmm. You have to get it done right now because the next guy's going to overturn it if I don't win. And because of that, you don't know. So he's got to race this through. And if you race this through, we don't have time to adjust. The market and the economy doesn't have time to adjust.
Right. I think that's one of the big things, that a slow rollout of these tariffs would be very beneficial.
But when you have to hammer it in all at once and everybody's just got to deal with it, then that kind of sucks, it's just stressful for everybody, and that's not good for anything. It's definitely not good for stock markets. It's not good for your retirement plan. It's not good for your 401k, and that's terrifying. The trade war is just kind of crazy, and that's it. These countries are kind of returning the favor and doing the same. We can't sell things, but I would say you need to kind of get things in order. And the more things are still available and still easy, I would try and, work things out. I mean, I mentioned, it'd be cool if the president had a longer term, right? That would be awesome. But I mean, who knows because if you get the wrong guy, it could be really bad and the country could really turn if you have the wrong guy in the office for way too long. You would think that with the mix, because we have the Congress, the House, like where they do elections every other year, or I think the House is 4-year terms, but they're alternated, like half of them do in one cycle. So like every 2 years, you're electing the other half. And I think senators, are they 2-year terms? I'm not even
6 years for senators, 2 years for congressmen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, see, I'm way off. I'm completely backwards on that. But that's supposed to give you the stability, but we don't have it. And I think that's one of the big problems is we're so like lockstep with the president. Like the party votes as a giant block. Whoever has the majority in the presidency or whatever is just that's what's going to happen. And so you don't get that transition that I think that the Constitution planned out for.
Right. Well, I think the two-party polarization that we've had lately is definitely like a detriment to the country.
It really is.
You can vote for somebody that, promises one thing, but then the party goes a different way and they're not representing you anymore. They're representing the party.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's it. Nobody stands their ground. I don't know anybody it's something like 90% vote lockstep with the party line. It's insane. There is no thought. There is no culmination of ideas and different things.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever the main planners are that decide what the party's going to do, just railroad everybody. And I think that's kind of where, the Democratic Party got into trouble. They started railroading, everybody into one thing or another. And I think if you surround yourself with people who tell you what you want to hear, which Trump and his staff could have been accused of doing possibly the same thing. But if you surround yourself with people that tell you what you want to hear, you end up kind of spiraling in one direction and you don't open up to new ideas and new possibilities. And I think you get into trouble with that. And that's great, I guess, if you're the right guy, right? If you're George Washington. But I think that's why people are great leaders, is because they know that they should be open to other things and different stuff there. So I don't know. That's what I got. But I just say, be a prepper, man. You got to make sure that you keep things going in the right direction. Plan ahead. I would say this is the perfect time where you want to be sure that you have your needs met for the immediate future, being 6 months prepared. And, I know people can say, oh, well, it's easy to say that now as things are crashing around us, but we kind of been saying it. I don't know if you guys realize we've been saying it for a long time. There is like a recurring theme of have your stuff squared away. And that's the thing, next year it'll be a whole new crisis. And you know what? The theme is going to be the same of have your stuff squared away, be able to sustain and get your resources the closer to local, and the most local is on your property, right? And then next is, in your community from your friends, the more things are centralized to where you are, the better you can take care of things. And you know what? Take care of your stuff. Take care of your people, right? In the words of Mayhem Country Living there, right? Take care of your people. That's our job here. So with that, I would say stay safe, and we will talk to you guys next week.